Picking between a group program and an evergreen online course is sort of like deciding to go to Target alone or rolling up with 3 moms, 4 toddlers, and 87 distractions. Humans are generally inherently wired to hold themselves more accountable when there are others who are also showing up. Humans very much are always looking at that shiny object. What is the next best thing? You can think of an evergreen online course like meal prepping. Think about the last time you found something or were given something for free. If you signed up for a free course or a free challenge or got some free item, how accountable did you hold yourself to completing that free course? A group program is like hosting a dinner party. It's time to unlock course creation and build an impactful online course. I'm Cassandra Mazzaros, a millennial mom in the big wide internet world, sharing my approach to creating effective online courses. You're in the right place if you're looking for actionable advice to build your first online course, alongside a healthy dash of millennial mom humor. Picking between a group program and an evergreen online course is sort of like deciding to go to Target alone or rolling up with 3 moms, 4 toddlers, and 87 distractions. They both have their perks. One's more efficient, one's more social, but the experience completely different. Do you want your students to learn independently, or do you want to walk them through your content hand in hand? Welcome back to another episode of Unlock Course Creation, where today we're going to be talking about the difference between a group coaching program and an evergreen online course. But before we get into it, I just, as always, have to start the episode with a little bit of my real life and what's happening. So for me, the mountain bike season has officially started, finally, all the way up here in Saskatchewan, Canada. And for me, that is just so exciting. Mountain biking is something that I really came into last summer, and it has brought so much joy to my life. Basically, sourdough and mountain biking are my whole personality now. And so, aside from doing my podcast, being able to get back out on my bike has felt amazing. We did our first family ride this past weekend. It's been gorgeous up here in Saskatoon. And the women's ride or learn to mountain bike course that I took last spring has also kicked off this spring. So I am very much looking forward to getting back into that amazing group, learning and advancing the skills that I started working on last summer, and just, really embracing that mountain biking is here, and it's just bringing me a whole level of joy, and I want to bring that joy to the beginning of this podcast. So there you are. Again, if you're listening to just get the details, I'm sorry. You're going to get a little bit of real life along with this. And secondly, before we quickly get into the content, I also just want to remind you that if you haven't already, head over and sign up for my email newsletter that goes along with Unlock Course Creation. It's really simple to do. You head to cassandramazzaros.ca/email, and that will give you an opportunity to add your email and your name. And what that means is that every second Friday when I release a podcast episode, you will also receive an email newsletter where you'll get a little bit of bonus information, maybe a little extra story. It's different each week, but I am really looking to build my email list and have an opportunity to connect directly with you. And it's also an opportunity for us to just connect. If you have feedback, you can also connect with me that way as well. cassandramazzaros.ca/email to join the email newsletter. Today, we are going to unpack the real difference between a group coaching program and an evergreen online course. While they may look similar from the outside, they serve your students and you in completely different ways. Plus, I'm hoping to be able to help you decide which is the best fit for you and your business right now. So, with all of that, let's get into it. To kick things off, we are going to get started by talking about evergreen online courses. And before we can actually talk about the pros and cons of evergreen online courses, it's really important that I actually define for you what is an evergreen online course so that we are all speaking and understanding from the same frame of mind. So for me, when I'm talking about an evergreen online course, I am talking about a self-paced course that has been pre-recorded and has minimal live support as part of the online experience. And another way to look at that is minimal online support or minimal real-time support. So you as the course creator aren't having to show up in real time or generally having any sort of live coaching elements. Setting up an evergreen online course has a lot of pros. And for many people, and potentially even lots of people who are listening to this episode, you might be thinking about an evergreen online course, and that is totally fine. I think it's just important that you understand the difference between an evergreen online course and a coaching program. And so when we talk about evergreen online courses, let's first chat about the pros of setting up an evergreen online course. One of the first big pros of an evergreen online course is the scalability. This course type easily allows you to reach hundreds, thousands, hundreds of thousands of students without losing value in your course content. One of the main purposes of an evergreen online course is to be designed and completed at scale. So there are large number of students going through that course, and it is able to stand on its own and be successful without that personal or live touch of you being there and supporting your students through completing the course. And as a course creator, scalability goes hand in hand with time freedom. So when you've set up an evergreen online course, it generally limits the need, as I've mentioned, for that live or real-time touch. And your students are completing these course materials on their own. And that means that you get to spend more of your time doing, what you love, working on your next offer, working on a passion project, or just spending time with your friends, family, loved ones, donating your time to a charity. It really does give you the time freedom that many online course creators are looking for. So because an evergreen online course is inherently easily able to scale, it allows you and gives you that time, freedom, and flexibility to be able to spend, like I said, your time working on what you're passionate about, or donating your time, or just spending it with your friends and family. And lastly, one of the big pros of having an evergreen online course is the passive income potential. Once you have an evergreen course set up, you can also set up an evergreen marketing funnel that is continually going out and attracting your ideal students to your offer, making that offer to them and having them purchase, all while you're, again, working on your next offer, spending time with your kids, taking a nap, the definition of passive income. So while no, it is not passive in the setup, and you can hear lots of entrepreneurs and people in the online space talking about the definition of passive. Well, in many cases, just because it's passively bringing in income now doesn't mean that it has been passive forever. There is that upfront time and effort putting into creating the course. But once you have it set up, and like I said, you build out that passive marketing funnel that's attracting your students to you, getting them to purchase, it does provide that passive income opportunity. When I talk about this passive marketing funnel, for example, you may have experienced one of these in the past. Again, if you're familiar with the online space, one of the common ones is you will sign up for a free webinar or masterclass with a course creator. They'll take you high level through the topic that they're going to be teaching on, or that their online course is related to. So they'll teach you a few basics, and at the end of that webinar, they will sell you on the course that they have to offer. And they'll usually offer some kind of discount or bonuses, all those types of things. And if you've paid close attention, even if you didn't purchase off of that webinar, which is part of their passive funnel, you will notice that you are now on their email marketing list. So you're most likely receiving emails about this offer that they feel like would be a good fit for you. You obviously signed up for this webinar or something that they have to offer by giving them your email. So they're going to be emailing you and letting you know how they can help you reach your next goal or what you're working on. So again, if you're in the online space, you might be familiar with this, but building an evergreen online course gives you the opportunity to set something up in that way and have that opportunity to create that passive income stream. Just like anything in the world, Of course, there are so many pros to building an evergreen online course, but of course, there are also cons. And one of the first cons is that when you have an evergreen online course, there is inherently less accountability for your students. Because you've purposely built a course without that personal support and that personal touch, you having to be there doing live coaching and live support, it can be more difficult for your students to hold themselves accountable and actually complete all the content in your course and see the transformation that you've promised them as part of your course promise. Humans are generally inherently wired to hold themselves more accountable when there are others who are also showing up. So whether it's watching the lessons, taking action on those said lessons, really just any element of accountability, if there are others who are around doing it at the same time, it helps to motivate and push your students to also stay accountable. And so if you're missing or don't have that live element personal touch to your course, you will have a lower level of accountability. You are really relying on each student to hold themselves accountable. And ultimately, what this lower level of accountability means is that you may, and no, I shouldn't say you may, you will have students who will drop off. Humans very much are always looking at that shiny object. What is the next best thing? So if you've developed an evergreen online course, and particularly if you've developed an evergreen online course and haven't utilized actual instructional design principles to be continually driving that accountability, driving that engagement, you will have students who will drop off and who will not complete the course. This is one of the whole reasons why instructional design exists. So there are ways to drive that accountability, drive that engagement, ensure that your learners are actually taking action on what they're learning so that they don't drop off and not complete your course. Because let's face it, once a student has dropped off, the reality of actually re-engaging them and getting them back to your course content is very, very slim. And I feel like I am a prime example of this. I work in this space. I purchased an online course and I get the weekly recap emails of my progress on this course. I couldn't tell you the last time I've logged into the course. I dropped off as a student. I can't even actually tell you exactly why I just dropped off. But even with those weekly emails that are telling me my progress on the course, I literally just swipe and delete them out of my email account. In hindsight, I should probably just unsubscribe from the email list and save myself that 2 seconds of swiping to delete it. But then it's funny because as a human, we're also like, oh, but maybe I'll go back to it. But 9.9 times out of 10, your chance of re-engaging that student that has dropped off is, yeah, most likely not happening. And like I said, personal testament right here. I can definitely think of one course that I have that's showing up in my inbox. It's been showing up in my inbox now. My preschooler's turning 5, so almost 5 years. And yeah, and I'm sure there are others that I have in my inbox as well. Maybe not popping up as frequently, but that I've dropped off of and just there's no chance that I'm re-engaging. So cons of an evergreen self-paced course is really you have less accountability built into your course and you have a higher probability of your students dropping off and not completing the course. But it is not all doom and gloom, and there are certain course formats that fit really well as evergreen online courses. And if this is a fit for your topic or your niche, you should definitely consider building an evergreen online course. They're really best for content that is repeatable and content that is staying the same over time. So for example, if you work in the tech space and tech is literally updating in some places every 2 weeks, once a quarter, building an evergreen online course definitely probably going to be a little bit more tricky because the tech is always changing. But if you are in a space that really has a singular niche topic, the content isn't changing, then an evergreen online course might be just the fit for you. And like I mentioned at the beginning of this section, there are a lot of pros to building an evergreen online course. You have the opportunity to scale, you give yourself time freedom, the opportunity for passive income, And as long as you build your evergreen online course built around strong instructional design principles, you're thinking about engagement, you're thinking about the experience, you have a great opportunity to build a course that is going to impact tens, hundreds, thousands, hundreds of thousands of students over time. You can think of an evergreen online course like meal prepping. You do the work once, write the scripts, film the material, and then, like meal prepping, it feeds people again and again, even while you sleep. But don't forget, not everyone eats their leftovers, which brings us to a group coaching program. And just like the Evergreen Online course, let's start by defining what is a group coaching program. A group coaching program is generally made up of live or semi-live sessions, and it will also include coaching, community, or some degree of hands-on support to take your students through the entire experience and transformation. As you can probably see right off the bat, that's a big difference between an Evergreen Online course and a group coaching program. Because a group coaching program has live or semi-live elements and community or coaching, you are going to be creating that connection with your students. You can probably see right away that one of the first pros is being able to create a deeper connection with your students. By having that actual face-to-face time or even virtual face-to-face time with your students, they get to know exactly how you teach. And in many cases, you get to know exactly who is taking your course, which means that you get to create a deep personal connection with the students who are taking your course. No, depending on the size of your group coaching program, you might not have this deep and emotional connection with every single student, but on some level, you will be creating that personal connection. You'll be showing up live for each and every person who's bought your group coaching program. By having the coaching and community aspects, you will have elements of learning or understanding where they're at, what they're trying to learn, where their frustrations are, where they're stuck. And really, it just gives you that ability to create that deep connection and trust between you and your students. Because you're going to be showing up live or even semi-live for your students, it is also a great opportunity to collect that real-time feedback. So as you're working through a live training session, you'll most likely have the opportunity to pause and let your students ask questions. When they ask your questions, you will get a real-time look at where are they struggling, what are they stuck with, and maybe which elements of my teaching did I maybe miss the mark on. You get to then take that information back and obviously make your session better for next time. But through this process, you will also receive feedback even on your teaching style. So it could be little things such as talking too fast or using too much animation on the slides that you're not using. And if you haven't listened to the previous episode, go back and listen to that where I talked all about slides. And if you need them, there are some use cases that you do, but generally they're overused. Long story short, go back to the previous episode and listen if you haven't. But like I said, you have that opportunity. You're building that connection with your students, and you have that opportunity to get that feedback right from them. And depending on the type of support that you're offering, you might offer opportunities to connect in with you one-on-one. There's so many different structures within a group coaching session. They get to know you get to know them, and you get to hear directly from them and hear where they're stuck, where they're struggling, or even where they're seeing successes. So for example, you might cover a specific piece of content more than they even needed you to, right? They may have been like, hey, we got this, right? And again, you get to take that feedback and make your sessions better. And lastly, one of the big pros of a group coaching program is that it is a higher price point than an evergreen online course. So I mentioned for an evergreen online course, the opportunity to set up a passive marketing funnel. And with a passive marketing funnel, you're most likely leading into an offer that is of a lower price point. And don't think lower price point is like $5, right? You could still have a passive funnel leading into something that's $2, $3, $4, $500, but it's going to be at that lower price point. In a group coaching program, because you have so much of this live element, it is going to be a higher price point. So immediately you might think, okay, that's a positive for me as the creator, higher price point, more opportunity to be making more money. But I also believe that it can be and is a pro for your ideal students because by being at a higher price point, it also reinforces the value that you are providing and it adds a layer of financial accountability. So I talked about accountability being a challenge in an evergreen online course. They most likely haven't spent as much money. There's not a group of people holding them accountable, and it's easy to fall off. You come into a group coaching program, it's at a higher price point. You're working through it directly with yourself as the creator, but also most likely with a group of others who are going through it at the same time. And so you have that higher level of accountability and you have that, like I said, financial accountability. If you start talking about spending $1,000, $1,500, $2,000, $5,000 on a group coaching program, that financial accountability is an important piece of the puzzle. So, while of course it's a pro for you as the creator, it definitely can be seen as a pro for, particularly when I say your ideal students, because your ideal students who are looking for exactly what you have to offer, of course, it's still an investment into their development, but it it is exactly what they're looking for and it is going to help them get to the end point a lot quicker. So, there you have it. Just because, it isn't just a pro for you, it is also a pro for your students. I think a good example of this is whether it's a course or an item or really anything. Think about the last time you found something or were given something for free, right? If you signed up for a free course or a free challenge or got some free item, how accountable did you hold yourself to completing that free course? Maybe you did. Maybe it was something you were really interested in. But if you were just, oh, I'm interested in this, it's pretty easy to lose accountability. Or if you were given an item for free, how much do you actually value that item versus something that you're like, okay, I had to save up for this item and it cost me this much money and da 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 da. It holds more value. So higher price point can be seen as a pro on both sides. Okay, I'll stop talking about higher price point. We stuck on that one for a while. Just like an evergreen online course, a group coaching program also has its cons. And one of the first ones is that it is definitely more time intensive. Even just the amount that I've talked about the live trainings, coachings, community aspects, showing up live for your students, usually several times throughout a group coaching program, is time intensive for you and is also generally held to a fairly rigid schedule. So whether you're meeting with them once a week on this day at this time, or once every 2 weeks or once a month, whatever the schedule looks like, it is definitely more time intensive and less flexible. On the flip side, as a student, a group coaching program can also be time intensive. So, depending on the amount of time that your student actually has to dedicate to completing your group coaching program and any of the support materials that you may have created, it could be difficult for your student, right? Maybe they're a full-time employee, maybe they have kids, they don't have as much flexibility in their weeks. It can be difficult to actually participate and get the most out of a group coaching program if they don't have flexibility in their time. One other thing that I like to mention when we talk about more time intensive is also just it's time intensive, but it's almost just like focus intensive as well. Because being in those live sessions, while of course you're collecting that great feedback and able to answer your learners, students' questions right there on the call, it also generally takes a bit more brain power and thinking on your feet. So it's like actual time intensive, but also just almost energy intensive. At least for me, it is. That might not be for everyone. I do know honestly, my husband is gets so energized by chatting with people and answering questions and those types of things. So I think it really depends on the person. But for me, it's definitely draining in that way, kind of energy draining or energy intensive. And one of the other cons for a group coaching program is that it is definitely harder to scale. Again, in most cases, it's really only you that is doing these live sessions or coaching or semi-live sessions or being in your community. And so obviously that is going to be harder to scale. And while you might think, oh, I could do a group coaching program that has like hundreds or even thousands of students in it, honestly, that is most likely going to create a poor experience for your students because in that case, they show up to a live call or coaching session and it basically feels like they're fighting tooth and nail for a sliver of your very precious time. And so, what kind of experience is that really creating for your students when maybe you could have turned your content into an evergreen course? Yes, they wouldn't have access to you, but they also wouldn't have been expecting to have access to you. So if you've charged a student a higher price point, but then you have hundreds or thousands of students and no one actually has any time to work with you, that is a pretty poor experience. Again, at least in my opinion. So take that for what it's worth. I'm sure there are group coaching programs out there that are doing it. It's probably not something that I would recommend. Again, there are no exact hard and fast rules. And at the end of the day, you need to pick what works the best for you. If you're thinking about setting up a group coaching program, it is really best for high touch, high transformation topics. And I guess for me, what I really think about is if you are thinking about taking your students through a transformation, especially if it has multiple steps or multiple basically mini transformations throughout, that's where having a group coaching element can make a huge difference because that accountability becomes so important. They really can't move to the next step of the process until they've completed this step. So by having that opportunity to come to you with those questions, I'm stuck on this exact thing, I can't figure out what I need to be doing during this step, you can help them get through that. They're ready to go for the next step. Whereas if you're in an evergreen online course and you're trying to create this multi-progression transformational experience, it might just not resonate. Again, that's probably where you're going to start losing students. There isn't the accountability built in, and it's going to be tricky to keep their attention and engagement through each phase of the transformation. A second great use case for group coaching programs is actually beta testing. So when you are in the early phases of building your online course, whether that's an evergreen online course or a group coaching program, you could utilize group coaching and live sessions during your beta, because during your beta is when you really want to be collecting that feedback. I do also have a whole podcast talking all about beta testing, so definitely go back and listen to that if you haven't. But having basically a group coaching format can be really beneficial in that beta launch phase because ultimately your goal is to collect feedback, make your course better. Just because you do group coaching in your beta doesn't mean that you might not eventually turn it into an evergreen online course, which happens all the time. So online courses take all shapes and forms and sizes. Ultimately, it's what's going to work for you. A group program is like hosting a dinner party. You're in the kitchen, you're chatting with your guests, making sure everyone's got what they need. It's beautiful, but you definitely can't just light a candle and sneak off to bed. Honestly, that's what I would want to do. Introvert over here. Okay, so we've talked about evergreen online courses and now we've talked about group coaching programs. So, how do you know which one is right for you? And like most of my most recent episodes, the most important part is by taking a little bit of time to ask yourself reflective questions and think about the type of experience that you want to create. So, do you actually enjoy teaching, showing up live for your students, or do you prefer to batch your work, one and done, on to the next? Okay. So that question is fundamentally going to tell you the way that you like to show up. And I already put my hand up saying introvert over here. Energetically, that is a very important piece of who we are as humans. So it's important to honor that. Depending on the content that you have, you might have to think about exactly what that looks like and how you either bring that into an evergreen online course or a group coaching program. But again, there's pretty much a solution to everything. And if honestly, if you work in corporate, you know that there's a solution to every problem. All right. The next question that you can reflect on is how much time do you want to commit to this? Again, depending, where you are in your stage of life. If you don't have as much time flexibility, looking at an evergreen online course might make more sense. Whereas if you have some time flexibility and you're passionate about being able to show up live, or again, you really need to collect that feedback and learning, heading or at least starting down the path of group coaching program might make the most sense. Next question to reflect on is, do you already have proof that your framework works? So depending what you want to teach your students or what transformation that you'd like them to have, what your course promise is, do you have proof that already works? Have you already worked with some one-on-one clients? Have you done free work for charities, that type of thing? Do you have proof that your framework works? If you do have proof and kind of the testimonials, this works, I prove that it works, you're ready to head into the evergreen online course space. Whereas if you're like, no, I definitely still have some testing and some refining to do, then start in your beta test. Start with a group coaching program. Let them know the areas that you're continually refining and working on. And again, go back and listen to my episode. When you're talking about beta, you're also going to have a beta price point for that offer. And so just let them know that they're part of that process, right? So do you have proof that your framework works? If it does, evergreen online course. If you still want to refine it, definitely lean into the online group coaching. Like almost everything that I've talked about in Unlock Course Creation, I wish the answer was as simple as here's exactly what you need and here's exactly what you need. But it's all about taking that time to reflect and think about what's going to fit for you, your business, and where you're going in the future. And before we head into the next segment of this podcast, I think the most important thing to remember is that it's not a forever choice. So just like beta testing, you might show up in the early days as a group coaching program and eventually transition it to an evergreen online course. Or you might say, hey, I really want to try the evergreen course path. You might go down that path for a while and realize, this really just isn't for me. I want that opportunity to be able to connect with my students. So you might pivot. You might add an option to add a group element onto it, or you might set up a completely separate offer. So when you're thinking about the overarching type of course you're creating, just remember the decision isn't forever. Basically, everything on the internet is on the internet forever, but you can change your mind and what you're offering at any point and how you're setting it up and how you're creating it. So just don't ever forget that it is not a one and done decision. Even though it might feel like this big, scary, audacious decision, it's more important to make the decision on what format you want to go down the path on and start walking down the path. Both options are valid and valuable. It's all about matching the model to your season of business and life. Okay, that wraps up our content for another episode of Unlock Course Creation, which means it's time to chat about instructional design in the real world. And I'm hoping to keep today's segment fairly short, but I really just wanted to share and reflect on one of the most recent kind of big learning journeys that I went on, and this concept of what I refer to as just-in-time learning. So for anyone who's been following me on Instagram at cassandra.mazzaros, you will have seen that I just completed an April 30 Reels in 30 Days challenge. Throughout the challenge, I posted 29 reels in 30 days. I did miss one day, and I learned a lot. But in reflecting back, one of the most interesting things that I learned about actually completing the challenge is really just this concept of just-in-time learning. And the reason that I say that is that for me, it would have been very easy to look at, I will say as part of the challenge, it came with 30 prompts, like 30 ideas for your post for all 30 days, which was like, I think, honestly, that's probably one of the things I struggle with the most. That helped a lot. But I very easily could have looked at all of those prompts and thought, I do not know how to create that format. Like, for example, there were formats of creating like video memes using green screen. I've never done that before. Or even just some of the prompts around hooks and just honestly things that I'm not familiar with. I very easily could have looked at that and said, I am not familiar with that. I don't know how to do it. I'm out. I don't want to figure it out. But what I did instead was, no, I want to commit to the challenge And instead of getting overwhelmed of I have to figure out all these different types of reels before the challenge start, I just started the challenge. And then the first day that I came up to a green screen video meme, I don't even know all the terminology, I just started Googling and figuring it out. And again, I was very fortunate as part of the challenge. There were some templates and things provided, which definitely made it a lot easier. But it is amazing how much you can learn when you just need to learn it in that exact moment. And generally, in that exact moment, you don't have time to go down rabbit holes and get caught up in other things. You just focus on exactly what you need to learn, which is exactly what I did. And in the grand scheme of the 30 days, I almost feel like, not almost, I feel confident in saying that I came out knowing more about how to create reels than had I just been like, I'm going to try and buy the ultimate online course on how to create reels. Because it comes down to that just in time learning and that real life experience, being prompted to continually take that action every day. And so I guess the moral of my story today is that it can be very overwhelming and super daunting if you always feel like you need to have the answers to every single question. And honestly, millennial perfectionist over here, okay? So, like, queen of type A, needing to know the answer to everything all the time, having the future completely mapped out. I'm your girl, okay? But I'm working super hard to overcome this and embrace, sorry about that, and embrace an element of learning and that maybe doesn't come as naturally to me, and really just focus on this is the exact piece of information that I need to learn right now. And yeah, so I just thought that this element of learning, instructional design, whatever you want to refer to it as, was really shone through for me in this Reels challenge, because I was very much on the fence of whether I should participate or not. But I'm very glad I did. I really just focused, honestly, one day at a time. I think there was only like 2 or 3 times in the whole challenge where I had one day ahead done. Like, I never got more than one day ahead, and it only happened a handful of times because I just really focused day to day. What did I need to learn and how to get better, and how to even learn from the reels that I was posting, what was working, what wasn't working, that sort of stuff. If you're interested, also, I just heard about this, probably something that I'm gonna look into. I know that Pat Flynn is releasing a book fairly soon on, I cannot remember the name of the book. I should have looked it up before I started recording this, but I'm 100% certain if you go to Pat Flynn's website, it'll be posted all over there. Actually, I want to say the name of the book is Lean Learning, but it's basically this concept of just in time learning exactly what you need to know at this point of time and not getting overwhelmed with needing to know everything before you start. So that's my little segment today for instructional design in the real world. Maybe not as tied directly to a specific instructional design principle per se, but something that is just real life, and something that, if you think about it, you probably are naturally doing day to day without even thinking about it. Think about it and see if it's something you've done recently. And if you haven't, consider giving it a shot. Okay. I think that is going to do it for this episode of Unlock Course Creation. Thank you so much again for listening, tuning in, watching on whichever podcast player or YouTube is your favorite. I really appreciate every listen, every download, every watch. It means a lot. If you have any comments, feedback, anything like that, feel free to head over to my Instagram at cassandra.mazzaros, or do not hesitate to leave a review for Unlock Course Creation. I would be so tickled pink to see one of those. And yeah, so with that, I will wrap this up. Today we talked about evergreen online courses, the pros, cons, best use cases. We also talked about group coaching programs, again, the pros, cons, and best use cases. And then I shared with you some of those reflective questions to ask yourself and consider in helping you decide which course format is the best fit for you. And by the next episode, I will be very much into mountain biking, might even have some mountain biking scrapes, bruises, those types of things. Hopefully my butt is feeling better. For anyone who rides bikes, those first few rides of the season are sore to say the least. So that's the note I will leave you on. Can't wait to catch you in another 2 weeks. Adios.
Thanks for listening. Don't forget to follow or subscribe on your favorite podcast player.